Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Today, I'm joined by the great Santana Moss, the former Washington receiver. I've enjoyed every conversation that I've ever had with him because he's real and he's insightful. Today was one of my favorite chats that I've ever had with him as we discussed a lot from Sean Taylor to Washington secondary and De'Ami Brown and Taylor Heineke and much more. Santana was awesome. It was a longer conversation, so I'm not going to waste your time with my thoughts today. Just know that you can follow Santana on Instagram at 82the9. And you can read my work on ESPN.com, as I hope you already knew. On Friday, I'll provide a few more thoughts on various topics and players, but today, let's get right to Santana Moss. So here you go, my conversation with former Washington receiver, Santana Moss. I do want to start, Santana, with some of the stuff you're doing. Let you plug some of what you're doing because I see you popping up on Instagram, see you over here doing stuff. Tell people what you are doing and where they can get your stuff.
I mean, right now, man, I'm just staying busy with the game that I love, man. You know, I'm very fortunate that the Washington football team has, allowed me to, stay tuned in and be able to kind of share my insight each and every week. I'm on the pregame show with Julie. Another shout out to Julie. She's one of the reasons why I'm able to still be seen and heard. So I'm on the pregame show before every game with Julie, talking on 980, just leading the fans and everybody up. I think until kickoff, I believe. Right. And then post game, I does the NBC show with Jordan and B. Mitch. And,
right.
You can always tune in or catch me on social media on 8 to the 9. Or just type my name in and you can see it. And then Facebook also. But I also got a little commercial that we were just talking about.
That's right.
With Unibet. So I'm just fortunate, man, to be able to still cover this game and be here in Washington doing so.
Yeah, and to make no mistake, when you say and I know what you're saying about Julie's giving you the opportunity, you get those opportunities because people, one, like what you have to say and they like dealing with you. But when you're seen and heard, it's because what you say and what you say is worth hearing. So that's, to me, it starts there. If you couldn't provide that, you're not getting these opportunities. So we'll go there.
And just kind of just to piggyback off of that, that's why I've always tried to, be as real as I can be too. Like, don't get me wrong, man. It takes a lot to do what you guys do. Like, I didn't go to school to be a journalist, and so I give my perspective as a player. Now that I'm not a player anymore, I have to kind of tap into some of those skills that you guys have by doing my research and following a little more, up close than I would have as a player. So, like I said before, I tip my hat off to you guys who've been this person your entire lives. Like, this is what you want to do. This was your dream job, and it's not easy. People might say, "Oh, I get up there and talk football," and no, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
You should get a lot of credit for what you do.
Well, it's funny too, because as you know, and what I've learned over the years is sometimes you think you know something, and then you talk to the people who were involved in a play, and you realize I didn't know anything.
None at all.
Yeah. So, but I did want to start too with, and this was a couple weeks ago, but the Sean Taylor celebration, and you were there, and everybody knows what Sean meant to you. And I'm curious, and I know there was a lot of brouhaha, controversy over how it all unfolded, but I'm curious for you to see it, to be a part of it. What did it mean?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately, so should I say unfortunately, but fortunately, I wasn't really a part of everything that went on. Now, I was there.
Right.
I was around, but I didn't get a chance to see the street reveal. I ride the street all the time, so I've seen it, you know what I mean? And I didn't get a chance to go down on the field to celebrate, the alumni and all that and be there with his family. I gave Peter a text because right after I did my spot, my little pregame show, I have to get on the highway and punch it over to NBC so I can be ready for the postgame show. So I missed all that. But if you know me, I'm not big on having to be in the spot or be in the place,
Right.
I'm happy that it was done. I think
that's why I asked you that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was long overdue. And like I said before, it's crazy, man, because I think about this stuff now more than I did when I played the game. Like, people fail to realize if some guys play this game and say, man, I want to be known as a legend. And I played the game to say, look, if I handle my business, all that stuff should come. You know what I'm saying? And that's how I've always played and lived. Everything I do in life, if I do what I'm supposed to do, I shall be remembered for doing that in a good light. And so when it comes to Sean, that's all we can do is have his legacy live on. And it's great to see his daughter was to be a part of it. Like I said before, when he passed, she was so young. She didn't know none of that stuff was going on. She didn't know how people felt about her father and the way he played this game. She didn't know how people loved him or the person that he was, his family and friends. So now that she's older and she has a chance to carry on that legacy and be able to appreciate all the fruits of his labor, it's great. So I was, that's what put a smile on my face. That's what gave me, those goosebumps, just seeing her there and being able to take part in everything.
And, it's as somebody who loved watching him as a football player. And, everybody knows, like, at that fourth year, he was really hitting his stride. But what I still go back to with him is how perfect he would be. And I say in almost any era because he could play so much. But in this modern era, with his speed and instincts to play and to disguise coverages the way he could, it's like I still sit there and wonder, like, oh, what would he have looked like at age 32, 33 as a player? Because that he would still be able to do certain things. But I do think about that a lot.
Yeah, he was a freak of that athlete. People look at Randy Moss and say, they called him a freak. You look at Javon Curse, they called him a freak. Those guys played their position before their time. They were something that they haven't seen at those positions. That was Sean Taylor. Sean Taylor could line up at receiver. He can line up in the backfield. We was putting him on offensive plays in the goal line. He can play corner. We would be in one-on-one drills, and all I want to do is go against my cornerbacks out there. And Sean was like, no, I want something. And I'm like, why? He's like, because I need this, and he would go against David Patton. God rest the dead, both of those guys gone now. He would go against David Patton every practice. And Dave used to be like, Tanner, man, come get this young buck off me. And I'm like, I don't want no parts of him, because I just knew the kind of competitor he was. But he was a freak of an athlete. And, I question it too, because folks like, oh, he wouldn't be able to play today because of the way
God, he'd be great.
Game. And I'm like, screw that. Sean was a smart person. He would have been able to adapt to anything, but his athleticism alone would have been superior enough for him to play as long as he wanted to, because he was just that type of ball player.
Right. And that's why I say, like, and his ability to disguise coverages for any defense would have been a plus, even at this stage, because I think what I really liked in that last year that he played was how the mental side, it was catching up to the physical side. And that's what would have catapulted him into an all-time great. And the other thing, Santana, too, and I even tweeted this that day, is all these people who talk about how, like, oh, Sean was my favorite player. Hey, you want to play special teams? No, man, I'm not that. That's why I think that's what separated that guy from everybody else, was this desire to play special teams.
He did it all. Yeah, he was a football player. He was the modern era football player. Like, look, you need help. Sean asking, hey, what can I do? He was that kind of guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's turn to this team right now. And I'm curious, like, what you've seen. We know the record. We've seen what we've seen. What have been your take on this season so far?
Well, first, if you had to ask me leading into this week or before this week just passed, I would be like, it's a lot of guys playing game, but not playing the game to the caliber that we expected, especially on the defensive side. I mean, we give a lot of, flack to the defensive front, but if you really look closely, despite a game or two early in the season, they haven't been playing that bad. Now they have been doing some things, not in, unison with each other, but, you got guys getting double teamed. You got guys probably trying to make a play more so for themselves than not in tune with the play call. So, yeah, you might call some of that, but it's just all over the board when you look at the defense. You look at our front four was the guys that we was going to depend on, but then you look at the drop off in the linebackers position, then especially in the secondary. I mean, to me, that's hard to watch because I was a receiver. I pay close attention to those guys more than I pay attention to anybody when I'm watching us play. And I'm like, our DBs they can be beaten. Like I watch them and I'm like, okay, if you're playing off of me, I'm going to beat you. Then when you pressing me, they not putting their hands in the right place. So it's just hard to watch them. And then you watch him in Green Bay, and it looked totally different. Right. It looked totally different. Like I finally saw a defense playing, even though you're going against Aaron Rodgers, who's couldn't be possibly one of the best that played the position. They still look better. And you was without William Jackson III, and then you move, you move Landon to linebacker. So I'm saying to myself, scratching my head, like, you got some guys that you're not having at their natural position, and one guy that we paid a lot of money to come here who's not even playing, and these guys looked better. So hopefully going forward, I can see that kind of output again from that defense. Offensively, I didn't give him no chance coming to the season. I think my only hope was that Fitz can be Fitz for 17 weeks, and he didn't even last 1 week. He didn't even last one game. And then to see Heineke come in there and surprise everybody and just give us heroics. It seemed like they flat his tire the past 2 weeks before Green Bay, and then now he showed you that again in Green Bay. It's a great story going on with Heineke, but I still feel like he's a great backup. He's a great guy that you can depend on if your guy gets nicked in the game. But for our offense to be overachieving for half of those first 6 weeks, it was great. But you have to win games. We don't give you gold medals or ribbons for overachieving. No. You look at the win-loss column at the end of the day and say, how many games have you won?
Absolutely. And I want to go back to defense first, because William Jackson, to me, he doesn't look comfortable with what how they're asking to play. When you're a receiver, and this is what you say you look at, how many receivers are looking at him and saying, I know he doesn't look comfortable with it. I can now do something. What do you
see? Confidence. I didn't mean to cut you off. Confidence is key. I don't know what it is. I find it hard to see a guy who I watched in Cincinnati press man, bump and run everybody, and basically hang with anybody and follow guys around and have his man 75% of the time. As a DB, you're going to get beat. But let's say 75% of the time, I saw him making a play, whether he was picking it off, getting a PBU, whatever it was. This guy was making plays. And then now you come here to us with the front four that we have, and now he's off and he's playing a zone. To me, that right there is not his game. But then as soon as I spoke about it, I watch him now. He's able to bump and run, and he's whiffing and missing guys.
That's what was confounding me.
I'm lost. And, just knowing from other guys, like I've only been to 2 teams. I'm only played for 2 teams. And I remember coming to Washington, and I remember CP getting on me for being so anal about certain things, my preparation leading to that season that year in 2005. And he like, man, you here now, you gotta let it hang out, come do this, to do that. And I was like, no, because I haven't won my team over yet. I haven't did enough. I know what I can do, but I haven't got myself ready to go out here and play, or haven't played a game with you guys to give me the credit that I need and the respect I need, because that's what I want. That's who I am. I want the respect from my teammates and these coaches to know that who they traded for is going to go out here and be productive. So, I don't know what went on through his process of getting ready for this season, but I would expect a lot more from him, knowing that he's a big money guy. And in this league, the DBs and the receivers, it's their show right now. It's a passing game.
Right.
And these guys are going to either be a star or not when it comes down to how their production is on the field. So it could be a little jitters, first year jitters, because he's still trying to get acclimated, or it could be he's just not comfortable with the scheme. And I'm hoping that whatever it is, he gets over it, because, as an athlete playing this game that's being, under the microscope all the time, it can get worse for him if he keep hearing us chirping at him or about him.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to sink into his head and him to lose his confidence and not be half of the guy that, I see. I see half of him out there.
Right.
I see him flash every now and then. But I know, as we all humans, we sit here and try to be macho as athletes, especially football players, be like, oh yeah, I don't hear that. No, we hear it. That's why I don't pay attention to it. That's why I literally don't watch it when I played it, because I knew it hurts if it hits you the right or the wrong way. And so, I'm sure he hears it. I'm sure a lot of these young guys listen and watch and read more than I did. And that stuff can really build up and have you go out there and really press and not be yourself.
Well, especially in the social media age too, because all you have to do is if they have, I like when players say I deleted my account, because then it's like, then you're staying away from the nonsense or people who don't know what's going on. And in some cases, maybe they do, and they still ripping you. And it's funny you bring up the whiff, because that happened against Kansas City. He finally but he opens his hips so early on that play, but then he tries to get his hands on him and he doesn't. And that's his game, is getting the hands. But it's also like, as a receiver, if you see a guy with impatient feet, you're going to probably take advantage.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, man, it's not even the impatient feet part. It's just not knowing that he's not confident.
Right.
That's
okay.
That's all you
see
need.
That.
Yeah. You know, when a receiver or anybody smell blood from their opponent, they're going to attack. And that's what's been going on right now. I think, he's been caught in some situations where he just haven't came down on the, right side of that play. And it's causing him to think a little more than what he has done in the past, and, when you're thinking, man, that's when you're losing, because I can't think. I remember when I had my most mistakes as a player, as a receiver, when I dropped balls, it's because I thought about it before I even had a chance to do it. And the ones that I caught, it's because instinctively I went and made the catch, because I didn't even know how it was going to come, but it surprised me. Especially when I had quarterbacks that I wasn't sure of, man. That's when I pressed the most, because I wasn't sure that guy. I wasn't sure the ball was going to come where I needed it. I wasn't sure he's going to hit me out that plant. And when I watch DBs, and especially our team right now, especially our defense, I just see a bunch of people out there thinking, a bunch of guys not working in unison together. And to me, I think it's been 2 weeks that it showed up that they have played a lot better, and they both resulted into L's. But if they can continue that style of play going forward, it can turn some things around for us.
This episode is brought to you by HP Plus. In a world full of smart devices, shouldn't your printer be smart too? It is with HP Plus. These printers know when they're running low, so you always get the ink you need delivered right when you need it. Plus, you save up to 50% on ink, so you can print whatever you want, as much as you want, anytime you want. Huh, that is pretty smart. Get 6 free months of instant ink when you choose HP Plus. Conditions apply. Visit hp.com/smart for details.
NFL fans, hungry for a big win this week? DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, has you covered. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game, and if they do, you win $200 in free bets. If Sportsbook isn't available in your state yet, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings Daily Fantasy Sports Contests. DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code KEIM, that's KEIM, to bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and win $200 in free bets. If they win, you win with promo code KEIM, KEIM, this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required. One per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. One guy, too, that got a lot of grief is Landon Collins. And as you said, a couple of weeks ago, they started playing him more in the box. And I know from their, he says linebacker, I know from their perspective, it's like, well, you're doing the same thing as a big nickel. You're doing some safety things. So they view it as a hybrid. Whatever you want to call it, he is out of his, he is being used differently. You were someone that had to go from outside to inside too, and your role changes. People think it's an easy switch, but when you switch for a player, how hard is that to do? Even if you're still on the field, he's not on the field as much though. So how hard is it to do?
Well, fortunately for me, I was a slot guy in college. So I played both. I would play the outside, I would play Z doing base formations. And then when we put the 3 tight ends, the 3 receivers in the game, I would move in a slot. And as crazy as it sounds, when I got into the league, they didn't use me like that for 10 years. Right. And I'm like, I dominated inside. I'm a little guy. But to my credit, I was able to stand outside and hold my own for so many years. So it was great for me when I had a chance to say, okay, Tanner, we don't need much from you no more. Let's come inside. And now I see the field bigger. I see the different picture, especially at my position. I love the inside because what I can do best is beat my guy. I have a ton of field to work with now. To his credit, I understand how he feels about the change because he's played safety all his life. Mm-hmm. Even though he can't do some of the things that he might want to do at that position, he still bring that little behind them pads when he has to make tackles. You know, coordinators and head coaches or coaches, period, on the defensive side look at him and say, okay, if you're doing what you're doing in the run game so well, maybe we need to bring you a little closer. I don't see it in your pass game. And we didn't see it before the injury. Now you come off this injury and you can see it. It's evident out there. I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but it is what it is. So also I've been questioning just the whole, you know, what I've seen from years from just all those guys around attacking the ball carrier. I've seen guys allow the ball carrier to catch the ball and they just sit there and wait. No, you have to shoot. You allow me to set you up. It's courage for you because I'm going to show you something that I know you want. And as soon as you take it, I'm going to go the other direction. So, you know, I was questioning maybe he's not wanting to push off that leg because of that injury. And he's trying to just say, hey, whatever way I can stay on this field without doing too much, I'm going to do that. Hopefully that's the case. But I just feel like we needed that change. And even if it doesn't make him, that doesn't pleases him, if he can continue to grow at that position, he might be, you know, well off there, or that might prolong his career because if not, I don't see him playing safety much longer, and especially doing some of the things that he's done in the past.
Right. And I think what he's going to start to see too, is he's actually helping him in that role because he does help against the run game there. He's just not playing as much and everybody wants to play. I mean, I get that, but I do think it's probably his role going forward, whether it's
the hardest thing. That's the hardest thing, not playing. And look, I remember when Shanahan told me, like, Tanner, we want to move you inside. I think you still can beat your guy. And I don't want to use you as much. You know, I looked at your reps, and as a starter, you barely getting the ball. And that's the league I was in back then. I was the number one guy and barely getting the ball. And he like, so, you know, I don't want to burn you out. You getting up there in age. And I remember we had McCaffrey and those guys, and I feel like we left them outside and burnt them out when we wasn't using them. I could bring you inside, bring you in on third down, and you're going to be in a read. You know, it didn't sound right, but guess what I said? Because I knew how this world works. I'm like, if you feel like that's going to be best for us as a team, I'm going to roll with it. Yeah. Because now it's in your hands to prove to us that this works.
Right.
And it's crazy as it sound, you know, it worked. The first year it worked. I had 8 touchdowns. Right. And, you know, I was listening. I talked to a lot of my friends now, and they was like, Tanner, we face you guys, and our coach would still circle you like, look, 89 come in the game. You know what he can do. And he said, we would know that on third down, it's a possibility you getting the ball and you still will get open. So just knowing that I was able to still to be a difference maker coming in playing less, you know, I had to adapt to that. I had to really see it work. And so I think hopefully he can start seeing that stuff work for him. His body feels fresher. He's getting that bounce again. And then now the coaches might say, hey, we need to up his reps because the way he's flying around with less reps and not having to use that leg, use that Achilles, and now he can fire off and have confidence behind that leg. You know, this is his role, and I'm hoping that can happen because I think he's still a tremendous athlete and a football player, but he just have to change his process, his thought process of who he is as a player.
Right, and I do think he helps there. And I think that's part of the reason the defense is starting to improve is because he is down in there. And I love Cam Curl back there with I love, you know, in putting him in that role that Landon was in. Let's go to the receivers. De'Ami Brown, what have you seen from him?
I see a confident guy. I see a confident young man. I just had him on the podcast. We had him on the Players Club podcast a week ago, last week, and he got on me about North Carolina beating my Canes, and he told me NC State was going to take us down too. So I hope he catch this because you know Miami surprised him and got NC State. But I see a confident young man. I talked to him about his confidence. I talked to him about, you know, having a chance to really step up and you know, take a grasp of this opportunity with Samuels down. And then I saw him go down last week, and I'm like, man, I hope it's not something that's gonna, you know, keep him out that long. But just talking to him, he's very confident about his game, about himself, especially when you have speed that he has. It's hard to not be confident. You know, I think one of the things that's going to be key for him going forward is just continue to grow at the position and watch the guys in front of him. He said he loves watching Terry do what he does. He said Terry is very helpful. He said he's basically a sponge around Terry. Terry's giving him a lot of insight, but I told him, what he can do best is just watch. That's one of the things I did. Didn't matter how old or young you were. If you had something that I didn't have or that I liked, I would just watch you. And I would say, okay, I'm going to add that to my toolbox and be able to use it. And that's something that I gave him. And I told him, like, also as a player in this game, especially being a football player, we have that instinct or that mindset that we have to be the aggressor. I told him at our position, we have to allow things to flow our way. We're not with the ball. We have to allow the offensive line to block enough and hold up for our quarterback so he could hit us in stride. And I told him that at times as a receiver, I used to be so anxious to, let's make the play work that, when it didn't, it's because I was too anxious and I was blaming it on other folks. So if he allowed the game to flow to him and just take, be patient with it, he would see that once you get that first grab, now that confidence level goes even higher. And then the second one comes, and then before you know it, you got 100-some yard game, you got 2 touchdowns, and you're doing that consistently. Now you're that player that you want to be on this level. So I'm glad I had a chance to sit down and talk to him, but hopefully he's not that banged up and he can be ready this week. But he seemed like a guy that once he get his feet up under him and he start making more plays, it's going to be not too long for him to be a guy that we could depend on too.
Well, and the funny thing is, speaking to that, like he's had a couple drops, and they seem to stem from a guy who is trying a little bit too hard to make a play right now. And like instead of catch the ball, go, he's going while he's trying to catch the ball. And and so I mean, is that part of what you've seen, or what do you think?
And that's one of the reasons why I told him to let the game flow flow his way. I saw that, and that's when I was speaking on. I was basically telling him what you just said without saying something about drops. That's one of the
right, yeah.
Receiver. It's like, hey man, I see you had some drops. Now I'm thinking like, oh, he's
right.
I mean, he tried to calm me down. So being that I was in your seat talking to this man on the show,
that's a smart way to go.
I have to. You have to use these tactics because I've been there, and like a lot of guys don't have my thought process or my mindset. Like, look, I can say this guy's doing his job. He calling me out. I can't be all in my feelings. It is what it is. I know I dropped it, so I don't need to be repeated, be reminded, but a lot of guys don't think that way. They kind of get offended by that. So I was basically letting him know in so many words without telling him that, look, allow the game to flow your way. I understand you're anxious. I understand you're confident, but sometimes you have to humble yourself a little more, until you get yourself really out there and make those plays consistently. And that's all he have to do, As a young man, you're trying to prove to everybody. And I think the best thing happened for me is 2 things happened to me that makes me think right now, what if? One, as my rookie season, I hurt my knee before I even played a preseason game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out that whole entire preseason and into week 12 of that season. And so I didn't know at the time that was good for me because I've always been a guy playing, and I had started off so well in training camp. I'm like, man, this is a major setback. Right. And then 2, the second thing happened is that I had veterans that believed in me, but they never told me that. They always doubted me and said, what, so they say, Santana. I had Mo Lewis, man. I haven't seen Mo Lewis since I left the Jets, but I always bring him up because he don't know how much he meant to my career because he doubted everything about me. And he was doing it jokingly, and I didn't take it as a joke. And me and Marvin Jones are family, and he knew that Marvin was close to me as an uncle. And so him and Marvin would be joking around with me, and he'd be like, Marvin, he ain't showed me nothing yet. So you got to show me something. And I took that to heart. And before you know it, I was always trying to prove to him that I was that guy, So every game that I did something well, he would come and gave me that pat, like, okay, I see a little bit. But you got to show me again. And then it was the next week, I do it again. He's like, okay. And you got to show me. And before you know, he left me alone. And that was to me, okay, I'm here, because Mo Lewis left me alone. Right. I've been watching Mo Lewis all my life, so when he left me alone, I knew I arrived. And that I needed that for my career, because from there, I always had in the back of my head, I can never go back to that guy that they question. And I think all young guys need that. They need that check-in, that somebody to say, hey, I'm here. I see what you might have, but you got to show me consistently. And I think that was my way of telling him that as a guy that's watching from the outside looking in.
2 more things, and I always appreciate your time. Dax Milne, have you seen much from him? And I ask about him because I think he's a guy in the second half of the year that they're going to try and work in a little bit more. But have you seen enough from him to even to offer much of a thought?
I always ask about him because I hate, I say his first name well, and I'm like, how you pronounce his second name? His last name, how you pronounce his last name? And guys laugh at me because he's shown up. When they throw the ball to him, he finds a way to come down with it. And so he had his spots where I'm scratching my head like, I'm not sure if they would kind of say, okay, Humphreys, we want to put him in front of you. I still like Humphreys too, but Dax has definitely had some flashes here and there that has caught my eye. And so I'm hoping that we can find a way to work all these guys in more, because one of the things that I questioned, just knowing what we have, I'm never tired of seeing Terry work because I think it's just incredible what he does. Every week, Terry's just found a way to show up, and it's hard. It's hard being that guy and having to show up and no one else is there to really take the load off you. But hopefully our quarterback, knowing that he's doing a lot, hopefully he can take a lot of that pressure off, because I've been seeing Humphreys, show up, and I've been seeing Dax show up. And so I'm hoping that going forward that the coaches start saying, hey, we need to go after these guys a little more, especially in the inside, because these are your safety nets. When we don't have this tight end that we can depend on, and by the way, our tight end has stepped up and did a tremendous job also, but those slot receivers have shown up a lot, and I'm hoping that we can kind of take advantage of that. So I see Dax getting a lot of burn going forward, just because we don't have a lot of guys out there.
Right.
Depending on how Diami is, with his injury, Dax might get his number called a lot this week.
And that's why I asked, because I know that there are some people there, he's kind of opened their eyes a little bit, like he seems to get open a lot. So that's why I say I think he could be somebody, I don't know to what level, but I think he could do more. Last thing then on the quarterback thing, and you brought it up, and your thoughts on Taylor. When you have if players view, because I'm assuming how you view it is going to be how some others are going to view it. Yeah. When players view a guy like that, if they just view him that way, how does that impact anything? Does it impact you going into a game? Does it impact you during a game? Or are you able to separate and say, well, we got to make plays for this guy? Or is there I don't know if he can, and I'm not just putting everything on Taylor, I'm just in general, if players aren't as sold on a guy, how does that impact everything?
That's a great question. And the answer I would give you is that, when we had Todd Collins in the game, I didn't look at him as a backup.
Okay.
At the time, you're playing. You're the guy up right now. We have to go out there and do what we do so you can see the open guy and hit me. So I'm sure that those guys not looking at Taylor as a backup, because he's the quarterback. He's the starter right now. And that's how I feel about defensive backs. I don't care who was the guy. When you in, you're the guy. So I got to beat you, I think every guy on that team is really rooting for Taylor to do Taylor. And when you talk to those guys and you ask about Taylor, first thing they say is that you never know what you're going to get with him. So that's a good and a bad thing to me as a receiver, because one, I hope to know what you're bringing. I hope to know that you're going to find me. But two, as long as you're showing me the gut that you're showing me, that's what he's showing more than anything. He can be high with the ball. He can be off with the ball. He cannot see the guy, but he plays with his heart, man.
He does. That's why it's fun to watch.
He lays it on the line. And if I can get that from my quarterback, look, man, as long as you give me opportunity to win, I'm okay. I do want the ball when I'm open, but if you showing me winning, you playing with a winning attitude, I can ride with you. So I think going forward, man, we just got to allow Taylor to be Taylor. Like we was harping all week long leading to the Green Bay game, is that I don't see him throwing from the pocket like they do so much near those past games before Green Bay. I saw a guy sitting in the pocket, not comfortable. That's not him.
Agreed.
You can look, and those coaches know this. I think they give us, the hard time because they don't want to say what they want to say, give us too much insight, but they know that they can put some rollouts in their game plan and keep him from running with it. I mean, at the end of the day, if he rolling out and no one's open, take those 4 yards. Take those 4 yards. Positive yardage, keep the offense moving, keep the chains moving. So they know that, and I'm pretty sure they're telling him that. But I think you're being too critical at times as a coach when you're saying we want him to take less hits. Look, you can't tell me how to play football once I'm in between those white lines. You can coach me up to be prepared for whatever you want me to execute. But once I got that rock in my hand, it's my show. And that's what Taylor has to do. I heard him last week. He pissed me off again. And I wasn't, that pissed off. But when you're not winning, I'm going to always have a little bone to pick with you. But it seemed like he thought about that touchdown that he clearly had. He could have walked in. He wouldn't even got touched. But they in his head so much about how to go down, when to go down. He put his knee down first and brought the ball back, and it cost us a touchdown. So stuff like that bothers me because you hear and you see it. It's right there blatantly in front of your face that this guy is thinking because of some of the things he's been taught or told at work or in practice, and it comes out in the game. And you don't want him doing that, man. He's naturally a football player. Let him naturally go out there and play the way he knows how, because it's going to only help us win. And if he goes down, not saying that I want to see him go down, knock on wood.
Right. If
he goes down, then hopefully, because what you're saying you're doing is making sure those guys are prepared, whether whatever position they're in, first, 1, 2, or 3, hopefully we got Kyle Allen sitting there ready to go and be the backup or be the next guy up.
Tana, this is why you're the best. Thank you very much. And this is why you are still seen and heard. And that's why everybody wants you to be seen and heard. So I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
You know me, man. I appreciate the time. Thank you, buddy.
This episode is brought to you by Shell. College football is best enjoyed at home. The home that has no rooms because it's a stadium of 70,000 screaming fans. But wherever you are, ESPN and Shell can take your fandom further with savings up to 15 cents per gallon for fuel rewards members at Shell. Welcome home, football fans. Terms and conditions apply. See fuelrewards.com/fuelyourfandom for details. Shell is an official sponsor of ESPN College Football. ESPN, the ESPN logo, and ESPN College Football are registered trademarks of ESPN Incorporated.
The question is, what happened out there?
Showtime presents the new original series, Yellow Jackets.
The plane crashed. My friends died. And then the rest of us scavenged and prayed.
25 years later, they're not out of the woods yet.
I have no idea what's right or wrong out here.
It's gonna be bad.
Starring Melanie Linsky, Tani Cypress, with Christina Ricci and Juliette Lewis.
I think it'll be good to reconnect with some old friends.
Yellow Jackets premieres Sunday, November 14th, immediately following Dexter: New Blood, only on Showtime.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Santana for joining me, and thank you, as always, for listening. I'll be back with another episode on Friday. It's a big game Sunday. If Washington wants to show it indeed took a step in a loss to the Packers. Talk to you next time.